Hello, let's talk today about the benefits of coffee. The coffee, is it good? Is worth using consuming coffee in your day. And your 11 health benefits of coffee. Coffee is a beverage produced from the roasted beans of the coffee tree. It is traditionally served hot, but can also be eaten chilled. Coffee is a stimulant, with caffeine usually ranging from 80 to 140 milligrams for every 207 milliliters depending on the method of preparation. Studies have shown that people who drink 4 cups of coffee a day have a lower risk of dying from a heart attack. April 13th is World Coffee Day. Greetings and welcome to Nature of the Amazon channel. I ask you to subscribe and activate the bell. Leave yours. To strengthen the channel and share it with your friends and family so they can get to know our history of knowledge. And let's go by video. In some periods of the 1980s, coffee was the second most traded commodity in the world by monetary value, after oil. This statistic is still widely quoted, but it has been inaccurate for about 2 decades, due to the fall in the price of coffee during the coffee crisis in the 1990s, reducing the total value of its exports. In 2003, coffee was the 7th most important agricultural export product in terms of value, behind crops such as wheat, corn and soybeans. Minas Gerais is the state with the largest coffee production in Brazil, 26.6 million bags, which corresponds to more than 50% of the national production of the product and 17% of the world production. The municipality of Patrocínio, in Minas Gerais, jumped 3 positions and took the lead in the ranking of grain producers. In 2012, the coffee harvest reached 64,789,000 tons in that municipality, 2.1% of the national total. The information is from the Municipal Agricultural Research, PAM, released by the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, IBGE. In the comparison by species, the municipality of Patrocínio, MG, is the leader in Arabica coffee. In Robusta or Conilon coffee, Jaguar tops the list. Both municipalities dedicate 100% of their production to each of these species. In total, Brazil produced 3.037 million tons in 2012, a decrease of 12.5% compared to the previous year. Of this volume, 2.278 million tons were Arabica coffee, while the other 758.796 thousand tons were Robusta. Ethiopian highlands, in a place called Kaffa. However, the word coffee does not originate from Kaffa, but from the Arabic word kawa, which means wine. For this reason, coffee was known as Arabian wine when it arrived in Europe in the 14th century. History. A legend tells that a shepherd named Kaldi observed that his sheep were hopping around and were able to travel long distances by eating the leaves and fruits of the coffee tree. He tasted the fruits and felt greater vivacity. A monk in the region, informed of the fact, began using an infusion of fruits to resist sleep while praying. World production. Main producers. Sales in thousands of tons. Source, ICO. Year 1984. Brazil. 1,284. Vietnam. 14. Colombia. 662. Indonesia. 373. Ethiopia. 139. India. 196. Guatemala. 170. Mexico. 260. Peru. 70. Uganda. 153. Honduras. 86. Costa Rica. 151. Costa do Marfim. 289. El Salvador. 134. Nicaragua. 51. Papua New Guinea. 45. Ecuador. 83. Thailand. 28. Tanzania. 50. Cameroon. 95. Kenya. 93. Venezuela. 59. Others 554. Total 5039. In Asia, Africa, and America. In 1475, the first coffee shop appeared in Constantinople, a product that, in order to spread around the world, benefited, first, from the expansion of Islam and, in a second phase, from the business development provided by the discoveries. Around 1570, coffee was introduced to Venice, Italy, but the drink, considered Mohammedan, was forbidden to Christians and only released after Pope Clement VIII tasted the coffee. In England, in 1652, the first coffee house in Western Europe was opened, followed by Italy 2 years later. In 1672, it was up to Paris to inaugurate its first coffee house. It was precisely in France that, for the first time, sugar was added to coffee, which happened during the reign of Louis XIV, who had been offered a coffee tree in 1713. In its pilgrimage around the world, coffee arrived in Java, later reaching the Netherlands and, thanks to the dynamism of the Dutch maritime trade carried out by the West India Company, coffee was introduced in the New World, spreading in the Guianas, Martinique, Santo Domingo, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. Gabriel Mathien de Clos, a French officer, was the one who brought the first grains to America. The British and Portuguese tried their luck in tropical areas of Asia and Africa. Coffee plantations in Brazil. In 1727, Sergeant Major Francisco de Melo Palhita, at the request of the governor of the state of Grão-Pará, embarked on a mission to obtain coffee seedlings, a product that already had great commercial value. For this, he made a trip to French Guiana, and there he approached the wife of the governor of the capital Cayenne. Having won her trust, he obtained from her a seedling of Arabica coffee, which was brought clandestinely to Brazil. From the first plantations in the North region, more specifically in Belém, the seedlings were used for planting in Maranhão and Bahia, in the Northeast region. The climatic conditions were not the best in this first choice, and, between 1800 and 1850, cultivation was tried in other regions. The judge João Alberto Castelo Branco brought seedlings from Pará to the Southeast region and cultivated them in Rio de Janeiro, where the success was complete. The coffee business thus began to develop to such an extent that it became Brazil's most important source of income and foreign exchange for many decades from the 1850s onwards. In 1860, for example, Brazil corresponded to 60% of world coffee production, and Rio de Janeiro corresponded to 90% of Brazilian production. The success of coffee production in Rio was so great that it brought down coffee prices worldwide, popularizing the drink, which until then was considered a luxury item. At the end of the empire, due to soil depletion in the south of Rio de Janeiro, Vale do Paraíba Fluminense, coffee production moved to the north of the state of Rio, to the municipalities of Itaperuna and Cantagalo, and, especially, to São Paulo and to the Zona de Mata Minas Gerais. Thus, at the beginning of the 20th century, São Paulo and Minas Gerais production eventually surpassed Rio de Janeiro's coffee production, although Itaperuna remained the largest coffee producer in Brazil throughout the First Republic. Coffee in bags. The success of coffee farming in São Paulo, during the first part of the 20th century, made the state one of the richest in the country, allowing several farmers to appoint or become presidents of Brazil, a policy known as Café com Milk, for alternating in the presidency of São Paulo and Minas Gerais, until they were politically weakened with the Revolution of 1930. The coffee was shipped from the farms after being dried in the coffee yards, in the interior of the state of São Paulo, to the train stations, where they were stored in sacks, in the railroad warehouses, and then loaded onto the trains and sent to the port of Santos, through railroads, mainly by the English São Paulo Railway. The end of the slave trade and its effects. The slave trade was one of the most profitable businesses in the Brazilian economy and moved a lot of money. With its ban, the capital previously invested in the purchase of slaves was transferred to other activities. Thus, there was an increase in industries, railways, telegraphs, and navigation. Along with coffee, the end of the slave trade provided the beginning of Brazilian modernization. Reacting to the effects of the extinction of the slave trade, coffee growers resorted to interprovincial traffic and developed a policy of attracting European immigrants to their crops. Decaying sugarcane plantations in the northeast expanded the sale of slaves to plantations in the center-south, which became the main slaveholding region in the country. However, the work of immigrants would only gain weight in the 1880s, when coffee growers were no longer able to keep slaves on the plantations, due to the strength of the abolitionist campaign. Official Coffee Exchange, Current Coffee Museum, Santos, São Paulo, Brazil. The Coffee and the Frost. Plantation near the city of São João do Manauacu, Minas Gerais, Brazil. Coffee was planted in the west of the state of São Paulo, in the highest places, the ridges, dividers of the river basins that flow into the Paraná River, places less prone to frost than the lowlands of the rivers. Railroads and cities in the west of São Paulo were also built on these ridges, far from the malaria that was common in the vicinity of rivers. Coffee in São Paulo suffered greatly from the Great Frost of 1918 and the frost of July 18, 1975, which also hit the north of the state of Paraná, decimating all the coffee plantations in the Londrina and Maringa regions. The appreciation of coffee. The best-known agreement between coffee states to obtain external financing for storing coffee in warehouses in order to reduce the external supply and obtain higher prices for it was the Taubaté Convention of 1906. The assumption of the retention of coffee stocks was the belief that after a good harvest, the next one would be a bad one, during which coffee stored in the previous year would be exported. From the 1920s, the appreciation of coffee became permanent, greatly increasing the volume stocked, causing prices to rise, thus attracting new producing countries to the market, competing with Brazil. With the crisis of 1929, starting with the government of Getulio Vargas, all coffee stocks had to be burned for prices to rise. The choice was made in order to maintain coffee as a product destined for the elites. In other words, the government preferred to burn the coffee rather than sell it at a lower price, which would have made it accessible to any citizen of the time. From 1931 to 1943, 72 million bags were burned, equivalent to 4 good harvests. From 1944 onwards, the supply of coffee began to be regulated by agreements between producing countries. Current consumption and production in Brazil. Geographical distribution of different crops are Robusta, M. Robusta and Arabica and A. Arabica. Currently, Brazil consumes 20 million bags of coffee annually, which corresponds to 173 billion cups. Despite being the main exporter of non-value-added beans, the volume of roasted and ground coffee exported decreases every year. With the emergence of blended coffees, which mix coffees of various origins, Brazilian coffee loses competitiveness, since Brazilian law prevents the importation of green coffee from other countries. In 2020, Minas Gerais was the largest producer of Arabica coffee in the country, with 74% of the national total, 1.9 million tons, or 31.2 million bags of 60 kilograms. Espírito Santo was the largest producer of Conilon coffee, with a share of 66.3% of the total, 564.5 thousand tons, or 9.4 million bags of 60 kilograms. In 2017, Minas accounted for 54.3% of the total national coffee production. First place, Espírito Santo accounted for 19.7%, second place, and São Paulo, 9.8%, third place. In Europe. Café Nicola in Lisbon. Commercial establishments in Europe consolidated the use of the coffee beverage, and several coffee houses became world-renowned, such as Café Nicola in Lisbon, where politicians and writers met, notably the poet Bocage Virginia Coffee House in London and Café de la Régence in Paris, where famous names like Rousseau, Voltaire, and Diderot would meet. The invention of the coffee maker, at the end of the 18th century, by the Earl of Rumford, gave a great boost to the proliferation of the drink, helped by another coffee maker from 1802, this one by the Frenchman Descroisils, where 2 containers were separated by a filter. In 1822, another invention appears in France, the espresso coffee machine, from the Italian spremutum, meaning squeezed, although it was still a prototype. In 1855, a more developed machine was presented at an exhibition in Paris, but it was in Italy that it was perfected. Thus, it fell to the Italians, only in 1905, to market the first espresso machine, precisely in the same year in which a process was invented that allowed to decaffeinate coffee. In 1945, shortly after the end of the Second World War, Italy continues to have primacy over espressos, and Giovanni Gaggia presents a machine where water passes through coffee after being pressed by a piston pump. The success was remarkable. The crisis of 1929. With the crash of the American Stock Exchange in 1929, Brazil had the first major crisis of overproduction of coffee, with the Brazilian government having to promote the burning of stocks to try to hold prices. In the late 1930s, Brazil was faced with another production surplus that was resolved with the help of Nestlé, when it invented instant coffee. With this crisis over, Brazil continued to be the world's largest coffee producer, although in recent years it has had to compete with other countries in Latin America and Asia, such as Colombia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Coffee is currently the most consumed prepared beverage in the world, with around 400 billion cups being served each year. The most common type of coffee is Arabica, occupying about 3/4 of world production, followed by Robusta or Conilon, which has twice the caffeine contained in the former. Nutritional value. Nutritional value per 100 g. kJ2. Carbohydrates 0. Fat 0.02 g. Saturated fat 0.02 g. Trans fat 0 g. Monounsaturated fat 0.015 g. Polyunsaturated fat 0.001 g. Water 99.39 g. Proteins 0.12 g. Caffeine 40 mg. Vitamin A 0 ug. Beta-carotene 0 ug. Vitamin B1 0.014 mg. Vitamin B2 0.076 mg. Vitamin B3 0.191 mg. Vitamin B5 0.254 mg. Vitamin B6 0.001 mg. Vitamin E 0.01 mg. Vitamin K 0.0001 mg. Calcium 2 mg. Iron 0.01 mg. Magnesium 3 mg. Manganese 0.023 mg. Phosphor 3 mg. Potassium 49 mg. Sodium 2 mg. Zinc 0.02 mg. The 11 health benefits of coffee. Coffee is a beverage rich in chlorogenic acid, caffeic and coeal, which are bioactive compounds with antioxidant properties, which help fight free radicals, preventing premature aging, cancer, depression and diabetes. In addition, coffee has great amounts of caffeine, a compound that stimulates the central nervous system, helping to fight depression, improving mood and physical and mental disposition. The flavor, aroma, and amount of caffeine in coffee vary according to the roasting time, the type of grinding, and the way the beans are prepared, including espresso, soluble, strained, or decaffeinated, which can be consumed pure or used in sweet preparations, such as tiramisu or ice cream, and savory, such as sauces. The health benefits achieved with moderate consumption of coffee are: 1. Improve memory and concentration. Because it is rich in caffeine, a central nervous system stimulating compound, coffee helps improve memory and alertness, as well as increasing the ability to concentrate and decrease sleep. Tolerance to the effects of caffeine is very common, that is, it is often necessary to consume increasing doses to obtain the same benefits that were obtained from consuming small initial doses. 2. Avoid depression. The polyphenols present in great amounts in coffee fight free radicals and reduce inflammation in the cells of the central nervous system, which helps to reduce anxiety and improve mood, preventing depression. In addition, coffee consumption is also usually associated with social habits of conviviality, stimulating contact with other people and favoring general well-being. 3. Prevent cancer. Coffee contains caffeine, chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, and coeal, antioxidants that protect cells against damage caused by free radicals, preventing the development of some types of cancer. Coffee helps to lower the levels of estrogen in the body, a hormone related to some types of cancer, such as breast, liver, colon, and endometrial cancer. 4. Help fight headaches. Coffee has anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties that help reduce and prevent headaches, including migraines. Some people who stop consuming coffee may notice improvement in their headache. This is because the effects of the drink vary according to each organism. Therefore, it is important to observe whether drinking coffee causes the headache or helps to improve the symptom. 5. Help with weight loss. Coffee consumption favors weight loss, as caffeine helps to temporarily control hunger, contributing to the reduction of food intake. Coffee has thermogenic properties, increasing energy expenditure and burning body fat, favoring weight loss. The intake of 300 mg of caffeine per day stimulates an energy expenditure of approximately 79 calories. 6. Improve performance during exercise. Caffeine, present in coffee, has ergogenic properties, which increase the body's energy production, reducing tiredness and pain during physical exercises, and improving physical and mental performance. 7. Avoid cardiovascular diseases. Coffee is rich in chlorogenic acid, caffeic acid, and caffeine, potent antioxidants and anti-inflammatories that help fight free radicals, promoting artery health and improving blood circulation, preventing diseases such as heart attack, high blood pressure, and stroke. 8. Fight constipation. Because it contains caffeine, coffee increases the contraction of the stomach and intestines, stimulating the elimination of feces and helping to combat constipation. Coffee, especially in the soluble version, contains good amounts of magnesium, a mineral with laxative properties, stimulating bowel movements and facilitating the elimination of stools. 9. Prevent diabetes. Coffee is rich in antioxidants that protect the cells of the pancreas and, therefore, improve the function of the hormone insulin, regulating blood glucose levels and preventing diabetes. 10. Prevent premature aging. By having great amounts of antioxidant compounds such as caffeine, chlorogenic acid, and caffeic acid, coffee helps protect the skin against the action of free radicals, preventing sagging and premature aging. 11. Prevent Parkinson's disease. Caffeine, a compound present in high amounts in coffee, protects the cells of the central nervous system and stimulates the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that, in low concentrations, increases the risk of developing Parkinson's disease. Therefore, some studies have shown that coffee consumption helps in the prevention of Parkinson's disease. Recommended amount per day. The recommended intake for adults is 400 mg of caffeine per day, which is equivalent to approximately 4 cups of 150 milliliters of brewed coffee. Women who are pregnant, planning to become pregnant, or breastfeeding should consume a maximum of 200 mg of caffeine per day, which corresponds to a total of 2 cups of 150 milliliters of brewed coffee. Children aged 12 and over should ingest only 100 mg of caffeine per day, that is, a maximum of 130 milliliters of brewed coffee. People with high blood pressure should limit coffee consumption to 200 mg of caffeine a day, which is equivalent to 2 cups of brewed coffee a day. Amount of caffeine in coffee. The following table contains the average amount of caffeine present in 150 milliliters in different types of coffee. Type of coffee: for each 150 milliliters, average amount of caffeine in mg. Roasted and ground, strained, 115 milligrams. Express 250 milligrams. Soluble 65 milligrams. Decaffeinated 1.3 milligrams. It is worth remembering that to obtain the benefits of coffee consumption, it is essential to maintain a balanced and healthy diet, associated with regular physical exercise. How to prepare coffee. Coffee can be prepared in different ways, such as strained, in an Italian coffee maker, espresso, in a French press, or soluble. In addition to being pure, coffee can also be consumed with milk in preparations such as cappuccino, mocha, or macchiato. The drink can also be used in sweet recipes, such as cake, tiramisu, and ice cream, or savory preparations, such as sauces, accompanying chicken or meat. Possible adverse effects. Consuming more than 600 milligrams of caffeine a day can cause insomnia, anxiety, stomach pain, and nervousness in some people. However, a single intake of 1.2 g of caffeine or more, which would correspond to 7.2 liters of espresso coffee, can lead to an overdose causing convulsions, vomiting, increased heart rate, difficulty breathing, diarrhea, and tremors. Who should not consume? Children under 12 years of age should not consume coffee. Likewise, people with problems such as reflux, ulcers, and gastritis should avoid the drink, as caffeine can irritate the stomach lining. Coffee consumption should be avoided by those who suffer from insomnia, anxiety, tinnitus, and labyrinthitis, as it can worsen symptoms. In addition, it is not recommended to drink coffee with other foods that have caffeine, such as green tea, guarana, mate, or chocolate, as excess caffeine can cause palpitations, nausea, dehydration, in addition to causing long-term dependence. Did you like the nature of the Amazon channel? I ask you again to subscribe and activate the bell. Leave yours. Lay to strengthen the nature of the Amazon channel and share it with your friends and family so they can get to know our history of knowledge, and I say goodbye hereby.